Welcome to Bandelier National Monument. This beautiful site is located about an hour west of Santa Fe, New Mexico, home to many ruins of the ancestral Pueblo peoples. And this video is going to take you on a walk along the main loop trail there at Bandelier National Monument. We were at Bandelier on a beautiful May day. We arrived later in the afternoon, so there were no crowds, no issues with cars, parking, anything else. It was just absolutely beautiful. And we decided to take the main trail. We went all the way along through the original villages, and then we also went up to Alcove House. This is about a 2.5 mile trail. It's easy walking, although you will see that to get up to the sites themselves, up in the cliffs, there's a series of ladders and trails carved into the volcanic tuff. And we'll see some pictures of those as we go along. I'm going to show them to you so that you could get some idea of what the walking is like in case you wish to visit there. The first major site you come to is the Q&A area. This village had about 245 ground level rooms and was inhabited by about 100 or so people beginning about 600 years ago. Like much of the ancestral Pueblo areas, they were eventually abandoned, in this case a little bit later in the 1500s as opposed to the 1200s like you will see in many of the Arizona and other sites. Once you move out of the canyon floor, you move up into the sidewall area, and this is volcanic tuff. It basically is ash from a volcano about 14 miles away that erupted nearly 1 million years ago and left almost 1,000 feet of ash. Over time, the ash compacted and formed a very soft rock. The soft rock is subject to erosion quite a bit and started forming some natural caves to which the native people then constructed, dug them out a little bit more, constructed rooms in them. It's believed that in front of the cave level rooms, they constructed stone houses, as you see here. And this was their main dwelling for those who chose to live by the cliff. And then the back rooms in the caves probably became storage areas and things like that. As you can see, once you get up the sidewall, it's absolutely beautiful up here, and you get a view down into Frijoles Canyon, where Q&A is, and there is a perennial stream feeding the area, which we'll see in a bit. Perhaps the major unique aspect of Bandelier, from a tourist point of view, is that you can actually go into these dwellings up into the cliffs. And that's primarily because they are built out of volcanic tuff, but they still get people doing graffiti and things like that in there, which you have to stay on top of. But it is a rare privilege to be able to go into one of these houses. You really not get much of a chance to do that at any of the other ancestral Pueblo locations throughout the Southwest. And here we're getting an interior view of one of the first rooms that you're able to climb the ladder and go into, overlooking it. And as you can see, they did some pretty good construction here. They put fairly flat-faced walls. If you look up here, you can see they squared out the ceiling, and much of that black is actually soot, and it is believed that the smoke from the fires inside actually strengthened the tuff to make them a little bit more durable over time. Here are some of the pathways. You can see that this is down in the original area. So it is easy walking, but obviously if you have some problems, this may be a challenge for some folks. There were still some folks there, but you just wait a little bit. They cleared out, and then we had the place to ourselves for the most part. It was absolutely fascinating to be able to go into these dwellings pretty much alone. This is another one of the rooms where where the National Park Service has put ladders in to give you access. I imagine that these handprints are more recent than ancient, but as you can see, They just had a beautiful view up here of Frijoles Canyon, and then Q&A down there along the cottonwood trees on the banks of the stream. And clearly that having a perennial stream anywhere in the Southwest is just an invitation to human habitation. And they did find a Clovis point here, indicating that there has been, if not habitation, at least folks moving through the area from about 10,000 years ago until it was largely left about in the 1500s, and the people moved into other pueblos down along the Rio Grande River. As you continue walking, you will continue into various other areas where you can see the original stone dwellings below, and then what they call the cave-8s. That's the carved out area in the volcanic tuff. But these rock walls that you see here, they would have come up and then they would have been plastered over, and you would have had access back into those cave-8s. We're going to come up to an area that they call the Longhouse right here. And as you can still see the ruins of the houses on the outside, and also look at the holes that are running parallel into the rock wall itself. Most likely those were where logs were put in so that they could hold 2-story structures or 3-story structures, as you can look up here and see, with more cave-8s as you go up. And that is quite a bit, good indication right there. Now in this particular area, they also have pictographs on the wall. They don't show up very well here, and they are very faint in person as well. But when you are there, you can certainly spend some time taking a look there. This is the stream that runs right through the heart of Frijoles Canyon. And once you cross the stream, you're going to come to the intersection where you can either head back, turn left, go back to the visitor center, or turn right and head up towards Alcove House. It's only a half-mile walk further up the trail from the intersection we were just at, and it's an absolutely beautiful walk. You're walking through cottonwoods, pines, and you have gorgeous views of the canyon walls off to the side. And here we're coming up, and we're actually headed up there now, up to the Alcove House. As you can see here, it's a 140-foot vertical ascent, and it is mostly on ladders, as you see here. The ladders are extremely safe, well put in, well preserved. Where they can, they also cut into the tuff and cut steps out. There are generally handrails in most of the areas, and in some places you're just so far down in the tuff you don't even need the handrail. But as you can see, we did have some other folks in the area, but this is a good indication that while you are doing some walking upstairs and you are doing some pretty good ladder work here, almost anybody of any age and in reasonable shape can take this walk. My wife, who's afraid of heights, wasn't sure about it, but she scurried up the ladders like a champ, and it was just no problem. And here you're seeing actually some very young children coming back down, and they're scampering down that ladder under careful supervision, and they did just fine themselves. So it really is accessible to anybody in reasonably good shape of any age. And this is what you're rewarded with when you get to the top. You can see some more cave-8s in there, some holes indicating where the logs were, probably to form the roof of the dwellings that would have been right there, or at least the rooms that would have been there. Off to the left, and we'll come back to it right there, they believe that was a kiva. A kiva is a ceremonial chamber, generally dug into the earth. It will be covered with logs, and then earth, and then a hard clay. And you enter it through the top. Kivas were where major ceremonies were held and major decisions were made. Now it's time to head back down, just to give you a sense of what it's like to head down the ladders. It's a little bit different than coming up, but it is still no significant issue. The National Park Service has just done an outstanding job maintaining the trails and the ladders. So I would recommend it to anybody who doesn't have any physical limitations and who wants to give it a shot. If you do come out and take this hike, I highly recommend that you stop by the visitor center and pick up their main loop trail guide. I think it's only 50 cents or a buck, but along the way they have numbered markers and they do a very good job explaining what you're seeing so that you can go back and you can take a look. At Q&A, it will explain where the three kivas were, and it will give you a much better explanation of what the various rooms were, how they were formed, and what the people's lives were like who lived here. Now we've made it back to the final ladder, and once we get down, it's just a walk through the beautiful canyon back to the visitor center. I highly recommend this walk. It is just absolutely beautiful back here. And there's a few interpretive signs along the way that I will show in the video. But it is just a beautiful place, much less crowded perhaps than some of the other national monuments and national parks. It's also different from what you will see in other ancestral Puebloan villages, that cliff dwellings that were made in sandstone alcoves and built up with sandstone. So this volcanic tuff really does make this a unique area, and it's a good visit in addition to going to Chaco, Quetzal, or Navajo National Monument and seeing some of the other more famous sites. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I highly recommend anybody who's in the area to make the trip. It's very enjoyable.